There are stories from World War II that never made it into textbooks. Not because they were unimportant, but because they were just too valuable to spread freely. In training camps, field manuals, and whispered conversations between veterans, soldiers passed along survival methods that kept men alive when supply lines collapsed and rescue was, well, nowhere in sight. Some of these techniques were so effective that military commands actually restricted how widely they were taught. Today, with most of that generation gone, much of this knowledge risks disappearing forever. In this guide, we are going to examine those forgotten survival tricks in detail. Not myths, not Hollywood fiction. Real methods developed under pressure, tested in combat zones, jungles, deserts, frozen forests, and prisoner camps. These are skills that still work today. During the World War II, survival was not just a personal matter, it was a military asset. A soldier who could stay alive without supplies could continue gathering intelligence, resist capture, and return to friendly lines. A unit that knew how to live off the land could operate behind enemy lines for weeks. Because of this, armies treated survival knowledge like classified equipment. Training manuals were restricted. Certain field techniques were taught only to commandos, scouts, and special units. In some cases, captured soldiers were instructed never to reveal these methods under interrogation. The logic was simple. If the enemy learned how Allied troops found water, hid fires, preserved food, or navigated without maps, those advantages would disappear. Survival knowledge became part of warfare itself. One of the most closely guarded skills was water procurement. You know, dehydration actually killed more soldiers than bullets in some theatres of war. In North Africa, the Pacific Islands and Eastern Europe, clean water was often non-existent. Soldiers were trained to read terrain like a map. Slight dips in ground indicated underground moisture. Certain plants, like reeds and willows, signalled water nearby. In desert zones, men were taught to dig at the base of dry riverbeds, line the hole with cloth, and let groundwater seep in overnight. In jungle environments, troops learned to cut specific vines that stored drinkable water. Bamboo segments were used as containers. In cold regions, snow was melted using body heat and improvised stoves to prevent energy loss. Today, these same techniques can be applied during hiking emergencies, remote travel, or disaster scenarios. Learning to read landscape features and vegetation can mean the difference between survival and evacuation. Fire was essential for warmth, cooking, and morale. But it was also one of the most dangerous signals to the enemy. A visible flame could attract artillery, patrols, or airstrikes. Soldiers were trained in low-signature fire building. They dug Dakota fire holes, which channeled air underground and reduced smoke. They used green wood filters to disperse heat. Fires were built in trenches or behind natural barriers. Fuel selection was equally important. Resinous woods were avoided because they sparked. Dried dung, peat, and charcoal were preferred for slow, smokeless burns. Modern campers and preppers can use these same methods to stay warm without advertising their position. In crisis situations where security matters, low-visibility firecraft remains, invaluable. Captured maps were rare. Compasses broke, batteries failed. So, soldiers learned to navigate by nature. They memorized star patterns for different seasons. They tracked moss growth, tree lean, wind direction, and river flow. In urban ruins, they followed sewage gradients and tram lines. Survival depended on invisibility. Soldiers were trained to disappear in plain sight. They studied shadow patterns. They learned to break up outlines with vegetation. Skin and equipment were darkened with ash, mud, and grease. Movement was timed with wind and background noise. Perhaps the most guarded secret was psychological resilience. Isolation, hunger, cold, and fear destroyed more soldiers than enemy fire. Training emphasized routine, small goals, and mental discipline. Prisoners of war were taught memory exercises, storytelling techniques, and mental mapping to prevent breakdown. Start by learning terrain reading and basic water location techniques in your region. Practice building low-smoke fires using local materials. Experiment with drying and fermenting foods at home. Learn night sky navigation and natural landmarks. Train yourself to observe light, shadow, and movement. Most importantly, develop discipline. These skills only work when practiced before they are needed. World War II forced ordinary men to become survival experts. They adapted not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Their knowledge was forged in desperation, refined through loss and preserved through discipline. Today, in a world of fragile systems and growing uncertainty, these lessons are more relevant than ever. They represent self-reliance at its highest level. If you value real history, practical skills, and hard-earned wisdom, this channel exists for you. If this guide helped you, subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten survival knowledge. Share this with someone who believes in preparedness and independence. And, keep these skills alive by using them.